Hello and happy Friday, and thanks for tuning into RadioFreeRhinecliff.org. And this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm, I'm your host, Norm, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Mr. Michael DeCola.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
Thanks for coming and bringing the absinthe, which we've been sipping.
It's the perfect bougie
boho bougie thing, which is kind of Rhinecliff.
Yeah, exactly.
I think. Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for coming in. Super delicious. Now, how long have you lived in Rhinecliff?
I first came here in like very early 2001. It was like March, maybe. Yeah, like March or April of 2001.
Right. And why? Why did you all come to Rhinecliff? This is you and Jamie.
Me and Jamie. Yeah, Jamie was just finishing at Cornell.
Okay.
Had done a study for veterinary medicine.
Okay.
And we knew we wanted to be closer to our respective families and older parents in the New York City area. But we had, after living in Ithaca and horseback riding and getting a more rural kind of lifestyle, we really wanted to keep that. So we looked for places that were close enough.
Right.
And I had gone to a good part of elementary school at Woodstock Elementary School. And then my dad's second wife had a place in Red Hook. So I was pretty familiar with the area and thought, this would be a great place.
Right. So you came from Ithaca.
Yeah.
You found this place. It's on the train to New York City. Were both of your families back down there?
Yes.
But at some point, how did you get to Woodstock?
So my parents split up when I was in first grade, and my mom moved upstate to Woodstock. So I went to Woodstock Elementary from first through fourth grade. And then she moved to the West Coast, which I lived in the Bay Area with her, and then came back and lived with my dad in Manhattan for high school.
Okay. And so you lived in the Bay Area for 6 years or so.
Something like that, yeah.
Just sort of guessing.
Yeah.
And what were you doing there? Were you developing special pursuits, hobbies? Somebody said some article I found said you collect hobbies the way Jerry Seinfeld collects Porsches.
Oh, that's like from the New York Times, the wedding thing. Yeah,
yeah.
I was a really serious young musician. So what I did before I started collecting hobbies was I practiced all day long.
Wow.
And I started playing trumpet here at Woodstock Elementary School.
Okay.
I started in the band program there, and then when I moved to the West Coast, I switched to French horn.
How come?
I like the sound of the horn.
Right.
I think it was probably. I think it was actually in Woodstock. Somebody played. It was in like third or fourth grade classroom. We had a teacher who would, bring music in during, it wasn't nap time, but it was like sort of the chill time.
Uh-huh.
And at one point, somebody played, there's a Tchaikovsky symphony with a really beautiful horn solo in it. So it got played, and I was like, oh, that's what I want to play. So
with a beautiful French horn solo.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And let me ask, I have no idea, who were some of the famous French horn performers?
Right now, or
like ever? Like I know lots of trumpet players and flute
so
players.
Many. In terms of soloists, there was an Australian guy, Barry Tuckwell, who was a really famous horn player when I was young.
And did you listen to his tone and his phrasing and stuff and try to?
Yeah, I actually did a master class with Barry Tuckwell at one point.
Oh, nice.
And then there was sort of the orchestral soloist, standout guys.
Right.
I was a big fan of the 80s and 90s Chicago Symphony Orchestra.
Okay.
So that was Dale Clevenger was the first horn player.
And
for them.
What was your connection to Chicago? Was it just Dale Clevenger?
Just the horn section.
Really?
Yeah.
Which is funny because there was a rock band called Chicago who was famous for their horn section as well.
With also great trumpet players. I remember dancing to Chicago at music's camp where we listened to Dale Clevenger.
So somewhere along the line, you heard the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and you heard the French horn player, and and you sort of tuned in.
Well, I mean, when you're classical musicians, it's one of the most focused, jockey, geeky things you can do.
Okay.
So when you get to a certain level of intensity about it, you know who all the great players around the world are.
Right. Makes
and
sense.
the Chicago Symphony in the late 80s and early 90s was the pinnacle of brass.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were amazing.
Brass for that part of
For that
symphony.
part of the orchestra.
And so they played, I guess, the symphonies that focused more on brass.
No, they played everything, but
Right.
their brass section was just like it just blew everything else away. It was this, and it was a very new level of orchestral excellence in a brass section.
Right. And so you're playing French horn. Do you look back and remember certain parts you played or
Sure.
solos you played?
Oh, sure. When I hear stuff on the radio, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just sort of like revel in those moments of getting to make that sound and that music.
I miss playing in orchestras. It's a great experience. And being part of a large group of people that are that focused and intense about what they're doing is a really really great thing.
I'm guessing you still have your French horn or horns.
I don't play it anymore.
You still have a trumpet or two?
We have horns and trumpets. My kids played brass instruments in the band for a little bit here in Rhinebeck, but I don't play anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, I play the piano, but I don't play the horn.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
So back to the West Coast.
Yeah.
You were there for a number of years, and then you came here, and you went to. Did you come back east specifically to go to LaGuardia?
So I came back east to go to. My dad had. After my parents split, my dad had always lived in Manhattan, and I came back east to go to Music and Art High School. LaGuardia didn't exist at that point.
Oh, okay.
And also, I had auditioned to be part of the Juilliard Young Musician High School program. It's pre-college, it was called. Juilliard
Right.
Pre-College program. So I came to do that because I was super serious about it.
So it's all pretty hot shit.
That Juilliard orchestra was one. It was as good as lots of regional symphony orchestras in the United States. It was really hot shit.
Right. So that must have been a blast for a kid of 14 or whatever.
It was so much fun.
So much fun. and so music and art then, while you were there, merged and became.
So my senior year, they had been building that building that's down in
Lower Manhattan.
in the Lincoln Center, which is now probably 40 years old. Now it's an old building, but they had been building. It was they'd been working on it for, I don't know, like 10 years almost before we went there. And my senior year, we all, both all the kids from music and art and those from performing arts high school, we combined, and we all went to a school there. And that was the first my senior year was the first graduating class from that school.
Wow. So that must have been weird. Did the musicians have sort of an attitude towards like the actors and stuff, or vice versa?
No, we were used to that, but we had two, there was two orchestras that had to combine. So there was a lot of competition
at
that moment when we combined forces.
Because the orchestra didn't get double in size, I'm guessing. No. So people are fighting for spots.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they had 4 different orchestras at that school.
So everybody got to play.
Everybody got to play, but the top orchestra, there was a lot of competition for that.
Right.
Yeah.
And is that the one you wanted to be in?
I played in that one. That orchestra was great, but not anything close to what I had played in was playing in at Juilliard and then had been at Interlochen in the summertime was a music camp, but it was a lot of...
Right. Okay, so now you graduate high school there. Yeah. I'm guessing you pursued your French horn studies somewhere else.
Yeah, so I... when I was a junior, I had started studying with a guy his name was Robert Rausch, who was a really fantastic solo horn player. and kind of a gigger in the New York City area. And he was teaching at the Hart School of Music. So Hart came to our high school and did auditions, and I got in as a junior. My parents wouldn't let me leave school a year early, so I didn't go to college a year early, but I had already gotten in. So my entire senior year, I kind of knew where I was going to school, and ended up going to the Hart School of Music.
And that's in Hartford?
Yeah, I was, and I didn't go visit it. I didn't look at it. I just went. And Hartford is very different than Manhattan.
Yeah, I'll bet. So now you're 18.
Yeah.
And you moved from Manhattan to Hartford, Connecticut.
Right, yeah.
And how many years were you there?
So I was there for 1 semester.
Okay.
And it was actually a great school. When I had gone there to study with this guy, Bob Rausch, and I got there, and about I want to say it was like 6 weeks. It was before the Thanksgiving break. He had a breakdown and stopped teaching.
Oh no.
Yeah, which was like.
And did you witness some of the breakdown? Did you see it in real time?
Yeah, his entire studio, all of us who were studying with him, we had a day with him where it kind of all fell apart.
Oh, how sad.
It was terrible.
Did he eventually land on his feet somewhere?
I don't know. I recently went and tried to find out what had happened to him.
Right.
Without getting there was a movie that came out that had a piece that I think he had played that wasn't credited on the soundtrack of the movie. And I'd heard it. This was about 2 years ago. And it was something that he was one of the only ones who did. He did these transcriptions of the Bach cello suites on the horn, which is kind of an unusual thing. And it showed up. I can't remember the name of the movie. But
so you heard this thing.
I heard this guy, and I was
that.
like, that's Bob. And I went and looked for him, and I can't find anything about what happened to him. I'm actually a little worried that he didn't kind of make it out.
Right.
Yeah.
It's tough. And when you're 18, it's hard to,
yeah. You're when you're 18, you're all about what am I going to do next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sad but true. I mean, you don't have the sort of wherewithal to really tune in and
no. And then I'm in Hartford, with no teacher. And so I transferred to SUNY Purchase, which had this great music school, and also you could study with anybody in the New York City area. So it was a perfect place for me to go and find another teacher to study with.
And how long were you there?
I finished there.
Okay.
I went there through my senior year and graduated from there.
And then what does one do? I mean, it sounds like you're probably amongst the top 10 French horn players coming out of college at that point in time.
Not at all.
No.
There's there are a number of conservatories in the world.
Okay.
And there's a lot of kids who are studying to be horn players on that level. And there's 1,000 jobs in the whole world.
Right.
Maybe not even 1,000. There's probably 500 jobs in the whole world where you can support a family playing the horn. So you don't really get prepared for that.
Right.
That idea.
The music schools don't tell you going in. You can invest $100,000, but you'll never make it back.
When they do satisfaction surveys of what people like their jobs, orchestral musicians are always the least satisfied, most unhappy people in the world. And mostly because you all go to school and you play in these orchestras with students, and it's all about the music, and you're going to be a soloist, and then you get a job where you have to go and get yelled at every day, and there's incredibly catty kind of
competitive
nonsense.
Yeesh.
We're all used to the competitive stuff, but there's the not competitive stuff.
Gotcha.
Not music competitive stuff.
Right. So you graduate college with a degree in French horn. What's next?
So I was living in New York. At that time, I was thinking about conducting. I had started doing that when I was in undergraduate.
Okay.
And I get, a bunch of gigs, here and there trying to make money, and I started building computer software for people.
Okay. How did that? Had you studied that in college also?
No, I had when I was living in the Bay Area and in middle school, like 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Berkeley High School and the middle school that I was there was one of the first schools in the country that had a mainframe connection. So this is in like 1978 or 79.
Right.
It was one of the only schools that had a computer program and a mainframe connection to the Cal Berkeley campus. So I started learning how to program just as a fun thing. There was a computer club, and it had always been an interest of mine as something that was fun.
Right.
And when I got out, I got out of school in 90. I tell people it's like when Henry Ford built his 1 millionth automobile. If you were a bicycle mechanic, you were the number one guy in the world.
Right.
Because there were no car mechanics. And I happened to be a guy who knew how to ride a bicycle and take it apart and put it back together in the computer world. So as I was trying to get jobs gigging on the horn, people were literally just dumping buckets of money in my lap to turn on computers for them.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what kinds of programming languages were you working with back then?
I had learned I'd learned some assembler, and then there was Fortran. It was like basic computer stuff from before the modern era of
COBOL.
Yeah, a little bit. I hated COBOL, but some people love that. But anyway, I knew how to run the machines, and I wasn't intimidated by learning languages for the computer. Like that seemed like, oh yeah, that's how you talk to a computer. You learn the language and then you write code for it.
Right.
Just like a little kid, like, oh, this is how you do it. I wasn't like a computer genius. I just wasn't scared. And I had some exposure to it.
I love that so much. Kids, if you're listening, think about that. I wasn't the best at it, but I wasn't afraid at all.
I wasn't afraid. And the biggest thing about it is it didn't matter to me. I wanted to be a top-level musician, and I was good at this. So I didn't have any like negative feelings if I couldn't do it. I would just pick up the next book, read it, and do it.
And were there negative feelings in the music
Oh my God,
world?
Yeah, because you're
for you.
Oh, sure. You're
So that was
struggling so
fraught.
hard.
Yeah, so much writing on it, so much invested, so many dreams.
Yeah, and you as a musician. So I went to a summer camp in Michigan called Interlochen, where kids come from all over the world, and they have something there called Bloody Friday.
Oh God!
And on Bloody Friday, every kid in every orchestra takes an audition to find out where they're going to sit for next week's orchestra. And you challenge each other. So if I'm the third horn player, I challenge the second horn player.
Can you only challenge one position?
No,
up?
you can jump up as many times as you win. But each time you challenge somebody, you play an audition. So you both play the piece. This is 16, 15, 16-year-old kids.
Oh my God.
But that's part of like, to be a musician, that's what you're doing, because you're going and taking auditions all the time. But that's, there's a lot of, because you care. It's your thing, right? So you have an enormous amount invested in it, which means you get nervous about it. Which, the computer, I didn't effing care. So it was easy.
So now I'm just following your life. It's been delightful so far. You're like, say, 22, 24, 25, whatever, and you're conducting.
I'm still banging my head against the wall.
For horn gigs, and people are dumping buckets of money at you for this computer stuff.
When I say buckets of money, at that moment,
well, it's 1985.
It was 1990.
Oh, okay.
But it's like $15 an hour, $20 an hour to rewrite somebody's database, where their contact database, which was a lot of money at that time. Like a union service. If I got a really good union horn gig, it was $150 for the whole service, which could be 3-4 hour rehearsals and a concert. So if somebody paid me for an 8-hour day $160, it was a lot. Right. It's a lot of money.
And so at some point, did you start to think like, I'm really going to focus more on one or the other of these?
So yes, at some point I realized that I was not going to get a job playing in the Metropolitan Opera, the New York Philharmonic. I wasn't going to get one of these $700 700 jobs that could afford a family.
Let me stop right here. What is it like to realize that, to come around in your mind to say, oh, this thing that I'm guessing was your dream?
It doesn't happen all of a sudden.
Right. Okay.
So it's not
sense.
like you wake up on Tuesday and you're like, oh, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
And it actually, with the computer stuff, it was a slow transition. So there was a long period where I was still trying to do both.
Right. Which must have been kind of lovely.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of had the perfect gig musician setup. I worked, this is a whole other story. I worked at 1-800-Lawyers.
Okay.
Which this guy, what was Bruce's last name? So Bruce used to have these commercials on local TV in the New York City area. If you've been hurt in an accident, call 1-800-Lawyers. And I was the guy who answered the phone. And I would answer the phone from 4 p.m. till midnight. And so when they'd run a commercial, like 100 people would call and I'd answer all these calls. But the whole rest of the time I could practice. So I'd bring my horn to work and I would play the horn, and then the commercials would go off and I'd pick up the phones. And that I got paid, $15 an hour to sit there and pick up the phone. So that was kind of the perfect.
Wait, so was there a phone bank where...
Yeah, no,
you had to go
we had
in
like 6 lines. It was not it was, you'd push the button.
Right. You were the phone bank.
I was like, 6 calls would come in. I'd say, 1-800-Lawyers, please hold. 1-800-Lawyers, please hold. And then I'd go through and find out. And 9 times out of 10, it was Jerky Boys calling me. And it was
the Jerky Boys. Or some Jerky Boy wannabes.
Right,
even
exactly.
worse.
Yeah, even worse. They weren't funny Jerky Boys.
No.
So I had that job evenings, and then was, trying to get into a master's conducting program, and then, doing these computer gigs on the side. And finally, I think it was my mom who said to me, there's this computer job fair. You should put on one of your suits and go with a resume and see what job you get. And so I wrote, a resume up with all the stuff I'd done. And I went to this job fair, which was, I think it was in Javits or someplace.
And did this resume include any of your musical training? Or this was just the computer resume?
All the computer, gig stuff I've done.
Just an aside, when's the last time you updated a personal resume of yours?
When we bought the farm. So
Okay.
It's 25 years ago.
Okay. All right. So you're going to this job fair.
So I go to the job fair and I pass out this resume, and I really thought, this is ridiculous.
How come? How so?
Because I'm not a computer science major. I did it for my mom. She was bothering me about it, and
Moms.
Yeah,
They're
moms.
so poor at bothering children about stuff.
So I come home and there's an answer. We had not an answering machine, but there was voicemail, I guess then, right? It was like 1991, 92. So you had voicemail, and there's all these messages. And, come in, we want to talk to you. So I go in, and they send me out on a job, and
So your resume got immediate results.
Immediate results. Now, you have to understand the moment, right? This is the bicycle mechanic moment. So all the people that had been to computer science school at that point had no idea that it was going to be this. They were engineers who couldn't talk to people.
Right.
The only thing they could do was write code. And they were way better than I was, but they couldn't talk to all these people who had a PC sitting on their desk and needed help doing basic things, or even writing programs. You had to talk to people to be able to do that. So they were like, oh my God, you can write code and you can talk to people.
Yeah.
I can make, and these were headhunters, right? I can make so much money off of you.
Right.
So I got sent out on a job.
A freelance gig.
Yeah. And they're like, we'll pay you $50 an hour. And I laughed.
And I'm praying at this point the headhunter said, I could maybe get you 80.
I
If
was
you
like,
think
sure.
that's funny, yeah.
Yeah, right, sure. So I go out on the job. I was writing, at that point, it was like Visual Basic and Access databases. So I was doing basic database stuff. And it worked out. It was okay. You know, I helped this. And I made friends with the guy who was the one who had hired me. And as I was leaving, I asked him, I said, hey, so what are you guys paying them? And
the headhunter.
Yeah. And they're paying them $100 an hour.
Right.
And I was like, come on. So I go back and he's like, I got a stack of other jobs for you. And I'm like, And this is the moment. I didn't care, right? It wasn't like I wanted to be a computer programmer. So I'm like, I'm not doing it for less than $75 an hour. Now this is 1990, whatever.
And so you're 20.
That's $150,000 a year in
27, 28?
I was 20. I was born in 67, so I was 25, 26.
It's a lot of moxie for a kid that age.
But only because I didn't care.
What a treat.
I was dumb luck.
So what'd the headhunter say? I got to know.
So, okay. And he sent me out on this job. I was working for this company called the Image Bank.
Oh, yeah.
So the Image Bank was like an image warehouse.
Like a stock photo kind
and
of
I started writing code for them to keep track of all their images. And then I started writing code for them. So they loved me because I could talk to them. And there was another guy there who could really write back-end code. He was a C++ guy. And we built a system for them where you could come in and sit at a PC and search their database. And once I had that on my resume, I was like, oh, because now I can go out and earn, twice what they had sent me out on. And I'm looking at music jobs, and I know I'm never going to do that. So that was the moment where I was like, oh.
So it was a slow transition.
It's a slow transition where I practiced less and less and earned more and more money.
It's a bad lesson. Huh.
Yeah.
And so at some point, I'm guessing, like a month or 2 months went by, you're like, shit, I haven't picked up my instrument.
At that point, I still played every once in a while because it was such a habit.
Right.
But the horn is funny. Like the horn, I said before, it's very jockey. Like it is an incredibly athletic instrument. It's just tiny little muscles that are here in your lips and face.
Right.
So if you're not working out every day, you can't really play.
Right.
Whereas I can sit down at the piano and play.
And do you still work out? I mean, I know some people just blow into their mouthpiece.
No, I don't. It's too frustrating. I think it was 7 or 8 years ago, I went and played a season at the Dutchess Community College Orchestra. And it was fun, but
what a blast. Now the French horn, it's also like it's a lot like the horn they used to call in the hounds and stuff.
Yeah, it is that horn.
It is.
Yeah, it's that horn.
And so I got to ask, were you, because now you're an avid horseback rider, right?
I was not riding horses then.
You weren't.
No.
So the calling in the hounds preceded the actual calling in the hounds on horseback.
Yeah.
Do you have hounds?
I have 3 dogs.
Okay, close enough.
I don't have any hounds.
Yeah.
One of them thinks he's a hound.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's dog thinks he's a hound. But
nice. What kind of dog is that?
He's a German short hair coonhound mixture.
Oh, nice.
Weston.
So then let's just jump ahead. How did you begin riding horses?
So, this whole period where I also did this martial art called Capoeira.
Capoeira.
Which is a Brazilian martial art. And I had gone to Brazil really right after high school, my dad had lifelong friends down there, and I now have his friends' children are really good friends of mine, and their children are good friends of my kids. So it's like a
How sweet.
multi-generation family connection.
Love that.
So I'd been down there, seen this. When I came back to New York City, I started, going twice a week, and it was like and then I got more serious about it.
And describe what it is. This
it's
capoeira.
It's a whole other show, right? It is a martial art that's disguised as a traditional dance that was brought to Brazil and developed there in one form or another by enslaved people from Africa that were brought to Brazil. So it came with them and then developed in Brazil.
Okay.
And I saw it when I was there in the northeast of Brazil and started doing it, and then became kind of tied in with and you play music and sing when you do it. So that was the big connection for me.
You're playing music and singing and dancing and beating people up.
Yeah.
So how did you come to see this in the first place?
I was traveling in Brazil, and there's a city in the northeast in the state of Bahia, where is really the heart of where a big piece of that and many other Afro-Brazilian traditions come from. And there's a church there where every Sunday they do this and have since, I don't know, since it wasn't illegal to do it anymore, which is probably sometime in the turn of the last century.
It had been illegal?
Oh, it was illegal that's why it was hidden.
On what grounds?
Because they don't want slaves teaching each other how to fight.
Fair enough. Right. Makes sense.
And I saw it there.
Right.
And was like, oh my God, what is this thing? And then found somebody in New York City who was doing it and started, going to classes and
eventually became very proficient.
Well, I did it long enough that I
I think that's how you do it. And you did your group tour the country, and
so that's how I met Jamie, who became my wife. I was part of a group that went and did a tour in, I think it was 92. Was it 92 or 90? It was 92. And we went all across the country, and then there was a huge, United States Capoeira meetup out in San Francisco. And so we traveled all the way out there, and I met Jamie when we were doing a demonstration of this thing in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Okay.
She walked up to me and was like, "What is that you're doing?" And I, talked a little bit and said, "Oh, we're having this party tonight," which she came to. And
wait a minute. So back up. So you're doing this thing.
Yeah.
In the square, say, in Santa Fe, in a demonstration.
Right.
And this cute woman comes up and says, "Oh, hi, what is that?"
Yeah.
And you're like, she doesn't care what it is, but did you feel like she was hitting on you?
A little bit.
Or do you think she really did care about...
I probably, at that time, felt she was probably more interested in the capoeira.
Okay. And so then she shows up the party, and now what did you think?
And in her words, I completely ignored her the whole night long because I was on the stage playing music, so I didn't come down and dance with her and
playing music, playing the French horn.
No. The Afro-Brazilian.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so playing music, you had an instrument of some sort.
Yeah, there's a whole band of instruments that get played for that martial art.
What kinds of instruments?
Well, there's drums and bells, and then the main instrument is this instrument called a berimbau, which is like a bow with a gourd on the bottom.
Okay.
That makes kind of a buzzing.
Which ones of these were you playing?
Oh, probably all of them.
Because you had rhythm, and so it didn't matter. You could play anything. No, seriously.
You had to. I mean, as that's one of the things you learned in doing this martial arts. You learned to play all the instruments and all these songs. And
how wonderful.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So she comes to the party. You ignore her for whatever reason.
because I'm an idiot.
And then you got
Because
married.
I'm really an idiot.
Yeah. And then you got
and I
married.
had no idea that. but I knew she was from New York, and because we had talked a little bit, and she said, "Well, I'm going to come to the class in New York City," and then she did.
Well, when she said that, I'm going to come to class. Now, what were you thinking? Like, oh,
And I'll
maybe
see
this
her in New
one's
York. Really?
So you're like sort of the worst single guy ever.
I was they didn't have incels then, but I was a classical musician geek. Like
Right. Okay.
I would come home from school and
your other job was computer programmer, also known for being really
like yeah. Was
So flash forward to New York. You're doing a class. You're giving a class. You're the professor, the teacher.
I was an instructor, so I was an assistant teacher. I was not the. There's a master.
And she shows up to class.
She shows up to class.
And now, finally, what are you thinking?
Now I realize.
Okay.
Because she made it like dating for dummies.
That's good.
So we went out on a date.
Uh-huh.
And really hit it off, and then started going out on more dates, and she kept coming to class, and we moved in together, and we did a whole New York City lovely.
And was that before she was in veterinary school?
Oh, this is way before that.
Okay. So what was she doing at the time?
She was working as a PA on movie sets.
Oh, cool.
And doing props was her thing. So she did a lot of independent movies.
Oh, cool.
And yeah.
And where was your apartment where you lived together?
Well, our first place was on 13th Street between 1st and 2nd Avenue.
Okay.
Which in 1992 or 3, I guess it's 1993, was very different than it is now.
Right.
And her parents were, they really couldn't sleep because she was
really? They were warriors.
No, I mean, they were fancy New York folk, and her daughter was living in a slum in the East Village.
Oh, jeez. And so did they like you, the folks?
Yes.
Martial arts instructor, computer programmer, musician.
Yeah.
Not what most parents are hoping for their precious daughter to.
Probably not. Although, at that moment, Jamie was walking around the streets of New York barefoot, rollerblading to work in a obscenely short skirt. So I probably at some point seemed like I may have some moderating influence.
That's just great. So you're living together in rough part of town.
Yeah. 6th floor walk up.
Oh God.
Yeah.
And
which I didn't even notice at that time, right? Because we rollerbladed everywhere.
Right.
And walk up 6 floors in the rollerblades, take them off.
You'd walk up in the rollerblades?
Yeah. I mean, just a level of fitness that I look at now and I'm like, wow.
Right. When you go up one flight of stairs and you're like, oof. And so somehow you all decided to make the roommate thing official and decided to get married?
There's a number of years between that moment and us getting married. Jamie, so we moved to the West Village then, after that.
Whereabouts?
On Horatio Street.
And?
Right off of Hudson, like 2 blocks from where, it was really the meatpacking district at that point. Now it's fancy. Now It's like, it looks like, you're in Copenhagen
near
or something.
El Faro?
Right across the street from El Faro.
Okay.
Yeah, right. 49A Horatio Street.
Oh.
Downstairs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think I knew somebody in that building. It was Nicky St. Phal's son, the sculptor.
Oh,
Philippe.
was next door.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you moved there. You lived there a bunch of years.
We lived there for, I want to say we were in that apartment for like 2 or 3 years. And that's where Jamie decided she wanted to go to vet school.
Okay.
So she had been a classics major in college and had to go back to school to do all of the prerequisites for a pre-med, basically.
Right.
So she started doing all that. And I think in 96, she ended up going to Cornell. But she had done a year or two at Hunter College and Stony Brook and all that, picking up all of her STEM classes.
So you all picked up and moved to Ithaca.
Well, she moved to Ithaca, and I thought I was going to stay in New York City and visit her, and realized that I was not going to be happy doing that.
Oh.
So I moved up to Ithaca too.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
You didn't enjoy the travel?
I mean, it's 3.5 hours, 4 hours. It's, and it wasn't, we weren't going to have a relationship if that.
Right. And you wanted a relationship.
I did. I had to get hit over the head with it, but I did.
Her absence being the hammer that hit you. And so you got hit over the head, and did you propose shortly thereafter?
So 2 years into vet school, I proposed.
All right, let's hear about the proposal.
You know what? It is not a romantic proposal.
Oh, forget about it then.
No, you know what? Her mom was really sick, and we had been living together. We were going to keep living together, and we wanted to get married while her mom could still come and participate in the
romantic
wedding.
in its way.
In a very different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so did that work out? Did her mom get to
her
witness?
Her mom had Lou Gehrig's disease and got to come to the wedding and see it, and
That's ALS?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was great. It was really great.
Oh, how sweet.
Yeah.
What a horrible, horrible thing. You know Jonathan Burkhart here?
Yeah.
You know he works with Project ALS.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All the time. He's working with this amazing organization.
What's his connection to that? Does he have family member?
He was friends with the 2 women who founded it, their sister, and now one of them has it.
Yeah.
So it's just a heartbreaking disease.
Oh, it's horrible.
And so he does all of their fundraisers. I mean, somehow he got hooked up with them for like a decade now or something. And they're making, it seems like they're always making pretty good progress.
Right.
On pushing it off, making it progress more slowly and stuff.
Yeah, at that time there wasn't a whole lot they could do for it. And
Right.
And I remember, it's funny, I thought the changes happened really slowly at first, and she had been losing some ability to speak clearly.
Right.
And I had picked up the phone, and the whole family was used to it because she was very talkative.
Very talkative?
Yes. She was, in everybody's life. She was like a very Jewish mommy, in everybody's life in a big way, all the time.
Jamie was no shrinking violet,
No,
as they say.
no.
I
mean, and she stood up to her mom, so it was...
Yeah.
But I picked up the phone, and Lily was on the phone, and she was slurring her words a tiny bit. And it was like a Sunday at 11, and Jamie talked to her for a little bit, and then they got off the phone. I was like, boy, your mom started kind of early today. And she was like, what? I was like, well, I mean, she was slurring her words. And she's like, didn't hear it. And that was right around the time when she first got diagnosed.
Wow. And slurring her words, she was a drinker, I'm guessing.
No, she wasn't.
Oh.
But the ALS was affecting her her speech.
Oh, okay.
That was why she sounded like she was slurring her words from drinking, but it wasn't. It was It was the ALS.
Hoofda.
Yeah.
Well, what a beautiful thing that you could sort of speed up the marriage, the wedding, so she could be there.
And it was a beautiful wedding.
Yeah. And where was it?
We got married in the Central Park Zoo.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
For the veterinary student.
Yeah. and all of her friends, and there was a seal show.
A seal show. I imagine sort of like a beach ball getting juggled between seals.
Fish tossed, and I forget what the names of the seals were. I knew it at one point, but yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it was great.
And then was the reception there too?
Yep. Yeah. Everything was there.
What a blast. And then you went back. You were both in Ithaca. You moved here.
So when she finished school, we had just bought the land here in Rhinebeck in early 2001. We had started the whole thing in 2000, the contracts and all that. And I think we closed in like March of 2001. And she had, she was doing a residency at Animal Medical Center. So she was down in the city weekdays. And I started off living in a tent on the land.
Oh, boy. On the land here in Rhinecliff.
The land here in Rhinecliff. And would get up every day and walk it because it was a huge piece of property. And we kind of
How big a piece of property was it?
So the first piece we bought was 500 acres.
Egads.
And nobody had touched it for years. So it was 500 acres of... Somebody said to me at that point, "You bought that swamp?"
And was it swampy?
There are parts of it that are, but no. I mean, there are parts of it that are swampy. It's a heavy soil, so if it's not looked after, it gets pretty swampy.
What does that mean, heavy soil?
Like a clay heavy soil, yeah.
Huh. And so you started tending to it?
I spent like that whole spring and summer walking it and getting to know it.
Right.
And then, we started clearing parts of it and planting. The hay fields that are there now, I started to clear in early, like that summer in 2001.
So had you stopped coding by this point?
So I ended up where my major client was Empire Blue Cross Blue Shield. And I was building all kinds of
Sounds pretty good.
Of tracking, internal equipment tracking software for them. And so at that time I would, go into the city every once in a while. But I kind of, once we had the land and that was going to be my full-time focus, I pulled out of that.
And was that a conscious decision? This is going to be my full-time focus?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Kind of organically, like here we were.
Right. But why in the world would you buy so much acreage?
That's a really good question. And because it was the cheapest land that had been sold in Dutchess County on a per acre basis in like 15 years.
Wow.
And it was in Rhinebeck, and it was really close to the train station and the town, and it just seems to me like a no-brainer. Like, why would
an amazing deal?
An amazing deal. And we had some money. Jamie's mom had died, and we had some money from that, and we decided to do it.
Wow. And so did you build a house on that property?
Eventually.
Eventually.
We lived in an Airstream trailer for a while.
Where's that trailer now?
I sold it about 6 years ago. I sold it.
Okay.
But we did live on it with 3 dogs. We lived in the trailer, which was totally nuts. The cats all left and went to live with Joseph Maresca.
Who's a contiguous neighbor somewhere?
You haven't had Joseph Maresca on your show yet?
I haven't.
Oh my God, you have to have Joseph Maresca.
But even
on
if
the
I
show.
did, I wouldn't know where he lived.
Yeah,
sure.
he lives here in Rhinecliff.
Okay.
And he used to live across the street from where Bob and Gloria Fox live now.
Okay.
On Morton Road. And the cats just ran away. And we thought they'd been eaten by coyotes, and we mourned them. And then we met Joseph at that time, Gigi's was like the one restaurant in town.
Right.
It was Gigi's, and there was what was Terrapin. I don't know what that was called then, and Foster's, and the bistro. and we met Joseph Maresca at Gigi's, and he's like, "Oh, I have your cats."
How did he know they were your cats?
Because we were talking about how the cats had disappeared, and,
Okay.
and he's like, "Oh, they're in my house."
Gotcha. That's hilarious. So you just said you mourned the cats, and before we went on air, you said that today is the Yahrzeit
Yeah.
of Jamie's passing.
Yep. It's 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
So what is that? What does that mean for people who don't understand Yahrzeit?
It's the Death Remembrance Day. It's the anniversary of her death.
Okay.
In the norm calendar, it was yesterday. In the Jewish calendar, which is lunar and moves all over the place, it is this year. It's today. Next year, it's going to be at the end of May.
Wow. Okay.
It moves around. It goes like 2 weeks and then works its way back, and
Right. And so will you? And you've got 2 kids.
Yep.
Will you and the kids do something special on today or
Oh, we
yesterday?
all went this morning on the way to school. We stopped by.
All went where?
We all went to the natural burial ground where she is. And stopped by
nice.
this morning.
Oh, how lovely.
Yeah.
And how old are the kids?
So Marco is turning 18 in August and just graduating this year. And his younger brother Wolfie is 16 and a sophomore right now.
Right. So they were like 13 and 11,
Yeah.
say, when
Yeah.
she passed.
Yeah.
They're old enough to really have understood what was
yeah.
happening and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So how does it go with the natural burial ground? Do you all talk? Do you say words
when
of
we're there?
remembrance? Yeah. I'm interested in what kinds of remembrances families take part in.
So 5 years in, it is very. Each year it's different. This year was particularly hard for me. For the kids, we got there and I was like, well, let's have a nice mama story. So each boy had a memory that they talked about. And then one of them's like, "Can we stop at a bagel shop?"
Love that. Kids. Constant reminders that life goes on.
And not in a way that would be at all upsetting. Just like, okay, this is done now.
Right.
And we walked out, and I dropped him. We stopped by bagel shop, and I dropped him off at school.
And are they both school here in Rhinebeck?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is ending very soon?
Another week.
Wow.
Graduation is 2 weeks, and the prom is tomorrow.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Prom is tomorrow.
Yeah.
Egads. So are they both going to prom?
I think Wolfie is actually going to prom as the plus one of a friend of his actually who lives down here in Rhinebeck, and Rhinecliff, and Marco's going to the Red Hook prom with his girlfriend who's a student there, and then they're both coming to Rhinebeck. So he's doing 2 proms.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I want to ask, you said that Jamie's burial, though she wasn't especially religious, was a very religious affair.
It turned out to be so. She was an atheist.
Okay.
Her dad was an atheist, but they're culturally very Jewish. She wanted to have Heineck, who's the Lubavitcher rabbi here in Rhinebeck,
Mm-hmm.
to take care of the ceremony.
Jamie wanted that.
Jamie wanted that and met with him.
So was that surprising to you to hear that after all that?
No, because it wasn't surprising to me that she wanted it to be her culture.
Right.
And not at all. And there's a funny, from a little bit on the outside looking in, although, my dad's second wife was Jewish. I've been involved in Jewish celebration and culture since I was a little kid.
Right.
There's a way that it can be incredibly culturally religious without being mystical, or very mystical without being religious. Like it doesn't.
Right.
which I hope I'm not offending anybody by describing it that way, but that's just from the outside looking in. So Jamie was culturally and in a certain way mystically very connected to that. It's just she wanted it. Met with Hainick, and he and it was a natural burial ground, which is very much in a line with a really traditional Orthodox ceremony.
Right.
And she got buried within 24 hours of dying, and was there's a cart where you wheel the person there, and
right.
she's put into the grave. There's no machinery.
Right.
So there was a cantor who sung. It was really
sounds beautiful.
It was incredible. And then the community, and this part I didn't know this, but the family's not allowed to bury her.
Oh.
It's the community who has to fill the grave.
Right. Take a shovel full of dirt.
The whole grave.
Right.
Not just a shovel full of dirt.
Right.
The whole grave. And that happened.
Oof.
Yeah. And kids, friends, it was amazing.
Right. So do you have a plot at the natural burial ground?
I do.
Is it near hers?
Yeah, I mean, you have to get a family plot. Like, otherwise,
you don't have to.
Well, otherwise you get buried next to her.
Well, I asked. They said no. Michael already got that spot.
Some guy from
some random
Primrose Hill,
from South Street. So that's nice. So you got 2 or more?
I don't, honestly.
We don't need to know.
I don't remember, but there was more than one.
But it's a wonderful, wonderful place, and it's so cool.
It's incredible.
And
My dad's buried there.
It's so different from the regular burial ground where there's stones and monuments and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Because all you can have there is maybe a stone and a plaque, but the stone can't be more than 4 inches high.
And it's got to be a natural stone.
Natural stone, yeah.
My dad was there for her burial, and he was like, "This is where I want to be buried." So when he passed away a couple of years ago, he's buried, appropriate distance away from Jamie.
Yeah, appropriate distance. Did they get along?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine they did. So we have like a minute left.
Oh my God.
But we're talking about the natural burial ground. You're also very involved in sort of environmental things here in town. You self-describe practical environmentalist, and you've done this thing with the composting.
Right.
Which is so cool. 30 seconds, go.
30 seconds, go. So we've been composting because we have an equine facility there with 25 horses. And we've been composting the stall waste for that whole facility for about 5 or 6 years now. And when the village ran into their difficulties with where they were going to do the composting, I called Vanessa and said, "Hey, we're already doing this. We could probably take whatever the village produces and incorporate it into our process without any extra work."
And is it up and running now?
We're not getting to village stuff yet, but we are composting. And what we did get was a DEC permit to do that. And as soon as the village gets their grant, we will.
So cool.
Yeah.
And now we're out of time. Michael DeCola, thank you so much for coming. Everybody come down to Rhinecliff for First Friday. It's benefiting a wonderful cause, which is, who's it benefit this? We're not sure.
Something important.
Some Rhinecliff cause. People, thanks for listening and have a great weekend. Michael DeCola, thank you so much for coming and sharing.
Thank you, Noah.